Welcome back, everybody. I'm hanging out today with the goats in the barn. It's a little bit rainy, but for today's video, we're going to be testing 3 overstable mid-range discs to see which one deserves a spot in my minimal bag. The discs we'll be testing are the Pyro. This is from Axiom. This is a Proton soft plastic. Yeah, Infinite Disc got a little bit of my business this week, and hard not to head over there when I need something. We're testing the Axiom Balance. The brand new Neutron plastic just came out, 5502 are the numbers. Excited to see how this one does compared to the other balance I tested on my last video. We're testing the Birdie Ultra again, which I also tested last time, to see how these all measure up. So, one thing I will hint at, I may have accidentally aced with one of these 3 for the first time on video on a real course. So way exciting. Look forward to show you how these did out on the course. For hole 1, we had a par 3 and it's 219 feet. My goal with this was to curve from left to right with a forehand shot. Through each of them, not as good of a direction on the Ultra, a little bit too far right. With the Pyro, about just right, and that one ended up right next to the basket. So what I found with this hole 1 was that the Pyro and the Ultra both had a higher degree of overstability than the Balance. That was actually surprising to me. I was expecting, based on some reviews I've seen, that this Balance wouldn't be any different than the Pyro. But not the case. It was definitely different. Definitely went straighter. So that was kind of cool to see. I was just learning the disc as I was throwing on these holes. So the next hole was a par 3, 214 foot. The goal with this one was also a forehand curving around a tree from left to right. As we watch my throws play back here, I didn't get as good of a direction with the Balance as I did with the Ultra, for example. That went exactly around the tree as I intended, and we ended up basically with the Pyro and the Ultra, very similar position, and the Balance once again went straighter, though the throw wasn't as good. So started to stack up a little bit more the evidence that Balance is less overstable. However, that doesn't mean it's out of the running, and that is just with forehand. We'll see how they do backhand on the next hole. Okay, so for this hole, it's par 3, 195 foot. My goal is to go ahead and throw backhand and have these curve in from right to left. I started with the Ultra, threw it way too far to the left. It definitely showed some overstability with the backhand. Threw the the Pyro next. That one was a great throw, a little too deep. Definitely demoed the overstability. Now for the Balance, threw that one backhand, not quite as much overstability in my opinion, although definitely a good amount. Next hole was a par 3, 179 foot. My goal with this was a backhand so I could curve away from the river down to the basket. Ultra, not as good a direction, ended up definitely sailing pretty far to the right or left. The Pyro, perfect on the direction, sailed right in, nice and overstable, and 4 feet parked from the basket. Then I threw the Balance. And where did it go? Straight in the basket. I thought it was too long. Here's my live reaction. Holy crap! Well, you've witnessed it. My first ace on a course. Okay, Balance wins. So yeah, like I say there in my reaction, hard not to just call this the winner. When you get an ace, and that was definitely a very exciting ace for me because, like I said before, Never gotten one on camera, never got one on a real course, and so cool. So next we had a par 3, tiny short hole, 106 feet. Just a simple backhand throw, nice and easy. All of these ended up relatively close. Similar behavior on a short throw. I do still feel like the overstability is higher on the Ultra and the Pyro compared to the Balance. But those were all pretty decent throws. The last hole was a 289-foot par 3, and we began that with the Balance. Goal was to curve left to right around a tree, avoiding some water. Threw pretty low on both the Balance and the Pyro, so they ended up almost exactly in the same spot. The Ultra, I got a bit of a wobbly release, but it did go right around that tree and ended up a little bit closer on the correct flight path that I was going for. Okay, so that was really a lot of fun. Really exciting to get an ace with the Balance and see what these Ultra and Pyro did and how they all compared to each other. Sure, none of these discs is perfect, right? No disc is perfect, but for what I'm looking for, an overstable, mid-range, maybe approach out to shorter hole driver range, I feel like any one of these can be made to work, okay? For the Balance, if I want a little more aggressive fade on the forehand, I feel like I would need to release it on hyzer angle a little bit more. While these two, I can throw a little more naturally, my flat, possibly a little anhyzer way on forehand, and they're going to definitely fade reliably. And not that this isn't reliable, it's just not going to fade as much on the forehand, which I actually don't mind at all. I do need to keep testing these a little more. I need to get some longer distance throws, for example. That last hole I ran would have been perfect, but I didn't get the greatest throws on it for any of the three. And so I'd like to see what they can do a little bit longer distance. Last video I included the Firebird, and I was going to test Ultra against Firebird. And then I decided, you know what, they're not really in the same category. I feel like if you want something to go far, and I've been throwing this thing a little bit more since the last video, it's going to go, you know, for me around 315 feet and do great going relatively straight in the wind, but still fade reliably. So I feel like this one is always going to be able to go farther than these mid-ranges. So I'm starting to feel like I may need to expand the overstable slot from ideally 1 into at least 2 and even maybe 3. Not completely settled on that yet. I will be testing the more approach style discs of the entropy tempo at approach distances. Last time I threw those, but I was throwing them hard. They weren't doing what I wanted. They weren't really being thrown how I would normally use them. And so I kind of counted them out for the do-it-all, you know, slot. But if I'm going to say it might be nice to have just a dedicated approach disc, I need to compare how they do against these mid-ranges for approach distances. And then I do feel like the Firebird is my favorite for longer distance overstability. So lots more to test, but having fun, narrowing down the way I like to play this game. Yeah, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still learning, still growing, and I have these currently defined minimal bag slots that I'm trying to fill and justify, and the whole reason I choose each one could change next week, honestly. I'm just learning so much. So thanks for watching. Let me know which one you would have kept. And I had some good suggestions last week. If anybody has additional suggestions on overstable midrange, love to hear them. Although honestly, I'm so happy with what I've got here. I probably won't be giving Infinite Discs any more business on mid-ranges for this slot anytime soon. But as I get into the next test of considering maybe a zone for my approach version of Overstable testing. I'll probably end up buying one of those. But anyway, thank you so much for watching.